When this woman Jan fell terminally ill, the hospice staff arranged for her horse and dogs to visit her. What she told her animal friends when she was finally reunited with them is very heartbreaking. Jan was a pretty young girl who always had a smile for everyone. However, she was more of an introvert, so she only had one friend whom she grew up with. This friend's name was Celia. Celia was the opposite of Jan. She was outgoing and loved to have a lot of fun. These girls did a lot together. They played indoor games and went horse riding. It was this friend who would later give Jan the gift of a horse that brightened up her darkest hour. These girls both had caring parents who went to great lengths to make them happy, and one way they did that was by organizing big birthday parties for them. It was during Celia's 18th birthday party that Jan met Dennis. In some decades' time, this man would make his wife's dying wish come true. How he did it is beautiful yet teary. During Celia's 18th birthday party, everyone had fun. As for Jan, she just enjoyed the way her friend danced and how she beamed at the several gifts she received. The party was about to end when someone suggested a truth or dare game. Celia was then asked to pick someone for the game, so she went straight to Jan and pulled her to the middle of the room. "Kiss the hottest guy here," Celia dared Jan. "I know you have always wanted this," Celia whispered into Jan's ears. Jan was so terrified and timid. How did her friend expect her to kiss some strange guy in the presence of everyone? She was about to back out when everyone started screaming, "Go, Jan! Go, Jan!" None of them were ready to take no for an answer, so Jan heaved and looked around. Amongst the crowd, there was a guy who just seemed different from the rest. He wasn't screaming or yelling. He just kept his cool and had his eyes fixed on Jan. "Him," Jan said and pointed in the guy's direction. For a few seconds, the guy just stared into space. Jan was so shy, she thought the guy had turned her down. But much to her surprise, the guy got up and walked towards her. The noise became so loud as everyone cheered them on. When he got close to Jan, she closed her eyes, then he cupped her face, and she kissed him as if nothing else mattered. At that moment, despite the noise in the room, to this couple, everywhere felt as silent as the night. "That was my first kiss," the guy said after they broke the kiss. It was so magical that Jan couldn't help shivering. When the party was over, Jan was about to leave when someone suddenly grabbed her hands. It was the guy she kissed. "What's your name?" he spoke softly. "Jan. What's yours?" "I'm Dennis," he said, and asked for Jan's number. She dialed the number on his phone's keypad and he promised to call. It was 3 days later that Dennis finally called. The two spent a long time on the phone, laughing and chatting. Then 2 weeks later, Dennis asked Jan on a date. When Jan got home later that evening, Dennis sent a text message. "I want you to be my endless love. I have looked into your eyes and I see how much you care. I will do anything to put a smile on your face. I promise." Well, Dennis kept to his promise in a way Jan could never have imagined. These two then started dating and got married 4 years later. Celia also got married and they lived beside each other. Jan and Dennis soon had their kids and their home was peaceful. Each day, they both felt grateful they had chosen each other. After about 3 decades, this couple became empty nesters. However, Jan got a gift that made their home lively again. During Jan's 56th birthday, Celia and her husband visited. Towards evening, Celia excused herself. Then a few minutes later, she returned with a baby horse. Immediately after Jan saw the horse, she burst into tears. She knew right away that Celia had gotten it for her. Little did she know it was a parting gift until Celia said this: "The first time we met was at a horse riding competition, and then we became neighbors, best friends, and sisters. You mean so much to me. I hope by the time I am gone, this horse will remind you of the beautiful memories we had together." Afterward, Celia told Jan she and her husband were relocating to Europe. It was a teary goodbye, and Dennis promised to fill Celia's spot. "I know you will. You are the best thing that ever happened to her," Celia said. A few days later, Jan named this horse Bob. The two did so much together. Jan rode him to beautiful places. She braided his mane and tail. They went swimming together, and she also taught him several tricks. They had such a beautiful bond that sometimes Dennis even teased Jan about being jealous of her relationship with Bob. 9 years later, Bob fell so ill that Jan was scared she would lose him. However, the horse defied all odds and stayed alive. Unfortunately, Jan fell sick next, but it wasn't too serious at first. So a family doctor often came over to her house to treat her. She often got better, only to fall sick again some weeks after. It was during this difficult phase of Jan's life that her loving husband bought her 2 dogs, Monty and Rowley. These dogs kept Jan company. Even on days when she was very sickly, they still made her smile. Then, in 2020, Jan, now 68, went to the hospital with her husband for a checkup after a fainting episode. Sadly, that was the day their world turned upside down. Right there, the doctors diagnosed Jan with a terminal illness. They also said she had little time left and would have to be admitted to the hospital right away. Then the doctors gave the couple a few minutes to themselves. Dennis couldn't believe the woman who meant the entire world to him was dying. "I want you to stay strong for me. Promise me you will fight," Dennis said, crying like a baby. "My love, I have been very happy since you came into my life. With you, I got everything I ever needed, and I'm not scared to go now. Promise me you will be happy." Jan cupped his face and cleaned his tears. However, just before Dennis left, she said, "I'm not sure if I would ever see Bob and the dogs again. Please send my love to them." Afterward, they waved each other goodbye, and one nurse took Jan away. Dennis couldn't see Jan again for some time because of the COVID-19 restrictions. However, he used this time to plan a beautiful surprise for his dying wife. Dennis reached out to the hospital and told them he wanted to do something special for his wife. Unfortunately, his request was turned down because of the COVID-19 rules, yet he didn't give up and kept reaching out to the hospital. 4 weeks later, Jan was finally moved into hospice care to receive end-of-life care. The rules were different here, and family members could visit their dying relatives. Dennis then told the staff at the hospice about his plan to surprise Jan, and they gave him their full support. On the D-Day, Jan, who could no longer get out of bed, was so surprised when the staff wheeled her to the patio door. "What's happening here?" the confused woman asked. Just then, her husband showed up with her dogs in arms. Jan let out a faint cry of joy immediately after she saw them. Her eyes sparkled, and she smiled radiantly for the first time in weeks. But there was an even bigger surprise on the way. "I know how much you missed your dogs. I promised you. I will do everything to make you happy," Dennis spoke softly. As Jan hugged her dogs, Dennis was still talking when the staff who had been taking care of Bob walked him into the courtyard. Immediately, Jan saw her beloved horse. Her jaw dropped and joyful tears welled in her eyes. "Look, he's here. Bob is here. Look at him." She pointed at the horse as if every other person couldn't see him. But they all understood she was excited, and neither of them held their tears back. Bob then moved close to Jan and kissed her neck and lap one final time. They clearly missed each other. Jan then told her animal friends these very heartbreaking words. "I am sorry. I will be gone soon, and you will no longer see me. But I'm going to take with me all the happy memories we have shared. While I am gone, promise me you will look after the love of my life, Dennis. Love him as much as I loved you," Jan said. Now she no longer cared, even if she passed away the next night. All that mattered was that she had a memorable moment with her beloved husband, dogs, and her horse as she battled death. To her, that was victory. Thanks for watching today's video. See you next time.